Hi Bookish Besties, my name is Brittany. This is Rescues and Reads. Thank you so much for joining me here today. If you are new, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. And if you're already subscribed, as always, I appreciate your continued support. Thank you for returning to another video. Today, I have an original book tag for you. Hello everyone, welcome to another booktube video. If you find yourself shaking, that is because we are once again joined by Sir Archibald. I have kindly let him into my office during this time rather than having my husband take him and lock him in his office while I film. So he might get into the way of the filming, but a lot of you seem to enjoy that chaos, so we're just gonna see what happens, right? So if you've been on booktube for any length of time, you will know that there are definitely some staple bookish tags that a lot of us like to do every year. I would say the biggest one is probably the mid-year book freakout tag, where we all kind of come on here and do a mid-year check-in of how our reading is going. And then there is like the end of year book tag, which is actually meant to be done several weeks prior to the end of the year, so I don't necessarily feel like that one is as accurate as I want it to be. And there are several other book tags that are related to the new year. One of my personal favorites, one that I've been doing for the past couple of years, is the January book tag, which was created by the lovely Jan over at Readathon. There's also the new year book tag, which was created, I believe, by Heather over at Bookables. So there are definitely several book tags going around that are related to the fresh start, the new year, and things of that nature. And while I do love and appreciate these tags, and I've definitely taken some influence from these tags, I've always found either that there are some questions that are not really relevant to me, or I wish that there were more questions involved in the tag. So I wanted to create something that might be a little bit more comprehensive overall in terms of the number of questions. So this is the original tag that I've created. It is called the Chapter 1 book tag, and it's going to be divided into two parts. The first part is going to be looking back on the reading year that has passed. So it's going to be called Closing the Book on Insert Year Here, and there are going to be 15 questions. There are also going to be 15 questions to the next part, which is going to be called Turning the Page to Insert Year Here. So turning the page to 2025. So I'm just going to go ahead and jump right in. Question number 1 is the standard question of how many books did I read in 2024, and did I meet my reading goal? So whether you believe Goodreads or my reading spreadsheet, I read either 159 or 160 books. I don't know where the discrepancy came from, but it was one book difference. So either 159 or 160. My reading goal was originally 125, and then I upped it to 157 to be one more than I read in 2023. And I did just meet that by the skin of my teeth. So I definitely satisfied my reading goal for 2024. Question number 2, what was your favorite and least favorite book of 2024? Now I'm actually going to be putting out a video soon of all my favorite books of 2024, so I will go ahead and skip that part. But I would say that one of my least favorite books, just in terms of overall reading experience, was one that I recently read, and it was called Rental House by Y.K. Wang, which was actually quite a big disappointment because I was really looking forward to it. It was a brand new release. It was a December book of the month selection, and I was really looking forward to it because it seemed like it was going to tackle some complex issues. It was definitely about culture, as it follows a Chinese American woman and her relationship with her white husband and the challenges that she faces not only with his family but even her own. And unfortunately, I just don't feel like it delivered. I felt like I went into it with much different expectations than what it actually was, and so I really didn't enjoy that overall. I think it was one of the only books that I gave a solid 2 stars to, so unfortunately that was probably one of my least favorite reads of the year. Question number 3 is, what is a book you read in 2024 that now lives in your head rent-free? Assistant to the Villain by Hannah Nicole Mayer is probably the first one that came to mind. This is a cozy, soft fantasy romance, but I will say there was very little to no romance in here, and what I really liked about this is that even though it is considered a fantasy, the fantasy was also very, very light. In some ways it actually almost read like a contemporary, and I just enjoyed all of the vibes of this. I think about these characters all the time. I really also enjoyed the sequel, Apprentice to the Villain, and I'm very, very much looking forward to the third book, which is going to be Accomplice to the Villain, and that is coming out in 2025. And that is Archibald going in my window and playing in the blinds. What book surprised you the most in 2024, either in a good way or bad way? And this definitely has to go to Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. This is a book that was published over a decade ago at this point, and naturally it gets a lot of hype, it gets a lot of praise. It is a very popular book. I never had any intention of reading this book. It didn't seem like something that was going to be up my alley, but I had to read it as part of the Read Like My Subscribers project that I was doing, and this blew me away. I listened to it on audio, which actually just added to the overall reading experience. Will Wheaton did a phenomenal job narrating the story, and I was just absorbed and hooked from start to finish. I thought it was incredibly clever and creative. I loved all the 80s nostalgia put in here. I thought it was just incredibly well crafted. It was fast paced but also you get a lot of the characters as well. And I just had a wonderful time with this. So this by far is the biggest surprise of 2024. Question number 5. What author did you discover in 2024 that you can't wait to read more from? When I was looking back at all the books that I read, in all honesty, a lot of the new authors that I read, I probably wouldn't care to read more from them, or I didn't love their books enough to read more from them. But there were a few authors that I discovered that I really enjoyed and I can't wait to read more from. The first is probably TJ Newman. I read both Falling and Drowning in 2024 and I really enjoyed both of them. Another one is definitely Chloe Walsh. I read Binding 13 and Keeping 13, the first 2 books in the Boys of Tommen series, and y'all know that I cannot stop raving about those books. Binding 13 could easily be one of the other biggest surprises of the year. So I'm definitely excited to read the rest of the Boys of Tommen series, and assuming I love them as much as the first 2, I would definitely be willing to pick up more romances from her in the future. And then another one I think I'm really excited to read more from is Ariel Lahan. I read The Frozen River earlier this year and I really enjoyed it. It was such a solid historical fiction, and it wasn't World War II historical fiction, which is typically my comfort zone, but I really loved the overall story. I love the characters in that, especially our main character. She was such a strong, powerful female character, and I've just heard a lot of great things about Ariel Lahan's other books and I can't wait to read more of them. Question number 6. Is there an author you broke up with in 2024? The first one that comes to my mind is definitely Alice Feeney. You would have thought that I broke up with her, I think in 2023 after I read Daisy Darker, but I ended up needing to read her other newest release this year. I can't remember why, but I ended up picking it up and it was just fine. It was not nearly as terrible as Daisy Darker, but it was still a very mediocre reading experience, and I definitely didn't pick up her newest release, Beautiful Ugly, which came out on Book of the Month in December. So I think I have officially 100% broken up with Alice Feeney in 2024. Question number 7 is, what is your favorite ship of 2024? So your favorite relationship? I would definitely say one of my favorites was certainly Johnny and Shannon from Binding 13. They went through a lot together, and I really truly feel like everybody needs a Johnny Kavanaugh in their life. So I would say that that is probably the relationship that stands out most to me from 2024. But as I do plan on diving more deeply into romance and contemporary romance in 2025, I do plan on paying closer attention to the relationships that I read in that year. Question number 8. What is one book that you were disappointed you didn't get to in 2024? I would probably say any of the chunky fantasies that I didn't get to read in 2024, namely Empire of the Damned and House of Flame and Shadow. I do plan on getting to Empire of the Damned as my first fantasy read of 2025, so hopefully I will be able to rectify that very soon. But yeah, any of the chunky fantasies that continue series, Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros is another one. I will definitely not be ready to move on in that series anytime soon. I don't know when I'll be able to get to Iron Flame, so those are definitely some. Question number 9 is, what is your favorite bookish memory from 2024? I would say probably my favorite bookish memory is just participating as a moderator for the amazing readathon. That was just such an incredible experience all around, not just from participating in the readathon, but also getting to connect with so many other creators and making so many other friends. I just had a really great time overall, and I'm just so glad that I was able to do that in 2024. Question number 10, what is a bookish moment that you are proud of? There are definitely a few bookish moments that I'm really proud of from 2024. I'm definitely proud of what I was able to do with my physical TBR. I got it down to under double digits for a while there, and so I'm now to a space where I don't really feel like I need to keep such a close eye on my physical TBR. I'm very proud of that. I'm also of course very proud to have started my Patreon. Now that didn't happen until the very end of the year, but it is something that I was thinking about and planning throughout most of 2024. I'm also really proud of Slayerfest. I made a lot of big changes to the readathon, and it honestly was not as successful as I was hoping that it was going to be, and it did take a lot of time and creative energy from me, so I don't exactly know when I'm going to be bringing it back, but I do hope that it will be back in the future bigger and better than ever, and I am overall really proud of what I was able to do with that readathon in 2024. Question number 11, what bookish format did you read most in 2024? This is always going to be audiobooks for me. So this question is really for those who read in a variety of formats, which I do not. Like 97-98% of the books that I read are via audio, and I don't think that that's going to change. This next question is also not one that I created for me. It's aimed primarily for those who do reread, and it's, did you find a book you may want to reread? And overall, the answer for me is usually no. I am not a rereader. I want to go on and experience new books all of the time, so I am not a rereader. Question number 13, this is a fun one. What character from a book you read last year would you want to spend New Year's Eve with? I would probably say Gibbsy from Binding 13. He was just such a fun and amazing character. He had a wonderful, silly sense of humor, but he was so incredibly supportive of the people in his life. Like, he had Johnny's back, he had Shannon's back, he was always there, and he is so deeply in love with a girl from this book, and I know that they are going to get their own story later on, and I'm excited to see it. And I think that he would probably be a pretty big kick on New Year's Eve. Although at this point, New Year's Eve is a very calm event for me. I am like at home on the couch under a blanket watching a movie. It is nothing wild and crazy at all. So he probably would be a little bit too high energy for me, but I do think that it would be a great time to have him there on New Year's Eve. Question number 14. What is the most beautiful book that you bought in 2024? This is definitely a difficult question because I bought a lot of stunning special editions and I could probably answer any one of them, but perhaps the one that stuck out the most to me was The Honey Witch by Sydney J. Shields. I mean, just look, this is absolutely stunning. I just wish that I had enjoyed the contents of this as much as I enjoyed how beautiful it is. I will be keeping this on my shelf though because of how beautiful this is, but unfortunately this was just a very mediocre cozy fantasy and I think I gave it like a 3 stars. And then the final question for part 1 of the tag is, were there any books that you DNF'd this year? And there were a lot. There were quite a few that I DNF'd. I didn't keep track of those this year and I definitely plan to in 2025. However, I've mentioned this before, but there's a big difference to me between DNFing a book and doing like a trial run of a book. Like if I get into a book and I only read a couple of chapters and I just realize it's not for me, I don't consider that a DNF. I consider that a trial run. A DNF to me is if I've gotten like a significant way through the book, like maybe 50, 75, 100 pages through the book, and I have given it the old college try and it's just not working for me and I've made the decision to put it down. I definitely do a lot more trial runs of books than I do DNFs, but perhaps the biggest DNF that stands out to me from 2024 would be Bunny by Mona Awad. The only reason why I picked this book up was for that Read Like My Subscribers challenge. This was recommended to me by Jillian. I think we all kind of knew that I wasn't going to like this book. It was going to be way too weird for me, and that certainly is what it was. I gave it 30% and I could not take it anymore, so I DNF'd it. Now moving on to part 2, turning the page to 2025. And question number 1, of course, is what book are you starting the year with? So as of filming this, it is only December 29th, so I haven't 100% decided on the audiobook that I'm listening to, but I think what I'm leaning towards is The Wall of Winnipeg and Me by Mariana Zapata. This is going to be a sports romance and I really enjoyed All Roads Lead Here, so I'm really looking forward to diving into this one. And then I do plan on starting an immersive read the first of the year as well, and that is definitely going to be Empire of the Damned by J. Kristoff. Question number 2 is, did you set a Goodreads goal for 2025? And I physically cannot do that yet. Like, it's not an option for me to go on Goodreads and do that. I don't think that it will be open until the first of the year, but I think my plan is to once again do 125, and if I beat it, great, but my goal is not going to be to beat it. My goal is to be intentional with my reading and to take my time if I need to with the books that I'm reading. So 125 is going to be the goal that I set. Question number 3 is, what is your highest priority bookish goal for the year? And honestly, my highest priority bookish goal is just to maintain my Patreon, to be completely active and present with my Patreon while also maintaining my normal booktube content, because that is not going to change. So for everybody else, like, they're still going to get the normal content from me. So I need to be able to balance both of those along with everything else that I have going on. And I think that's just going to be my bookish goal for the year. Question number 4, if you had to pick a word or phrase to guide your reading year, what would it be? If you watched the goals video that I created back during Bookmas, you will know that my word for the year is going to be intention. I want to be intentional with everything, but definitely with regard to my reading and my bookish life, I want to make sure that every book I'm picking up is something I genuinely want to read. So intention is a big one. I also want to be intentional with the ratings that I give books. I want to be very intentional with the content that I put out, because I always try to put out quality content. I try to put out content that is informative while also being, you know, somewhat entertaining and useful and things of that nature. So I want to make sure that my content is up to my own expectations and that it's not like throwaway content, you know what I mean? So overall, just with regard to my booktube channel, with regard to the books that I'm reading, I want intention to be a guiding word for the year. Question number 4, what is one of your most anticipated releases of 2025? And I actually did a video for Bookmas all about my anticipated releases from 2025, but the first one that definitely pops into my head is A Sea of Unspoken Things by Adrienne Young, which I will actually be reading in January because it is the selection for the Paw Prints and Prose book club for my Patreon. So I will be getting to that soon. But of course, you know, Riley Sager has a new release coming out, Ruth Ware has another book coming out, Lisa Jewell has another book coming out, S.A. Cosby has another book coming out. So many authors that I love and adore are coming out with releases in 2025, and I am hyped for every single one of them. Question number 5 is one bookish habit that you want to break in 2025. I think I want to break the habit of not picking up a book because I don't know if I will ever be in the mood to read it. I like to follow my instincts when it comes to reading. So a lot of the time, unless I'm super crazy excited for a book, I'm not going going to add it to my TBR, and I'm certainly not going to buy it. You know, if there's any inkling in me that does not think that I will enjoy the book, or if I don't think that it's something that could be up my alley, I won't even consider it. But there are some books that do seem like something that I could potentially want to read, but maybe they are outside of my comfort zone, or maybe there's something about them that is putting me off wanting to read them, and so I don't even consider them. And I think I kind of want to try to break that a little bit. Like, if there is a book that maybe I'm not sure about, but I want to give a try, I want to be brave enough to give it a try. I do want to break the habit of not picking up a book just because I'm a little bit nervous about it. Question number 7, how about a bookish habit that you want to develop or improve in 2025? And for me, the bookish habit that I want to improve is just allowing myself time to sit down and read, even if it's just for 10 minutes. I always want to have a chunky fantasy going in 2025. I immersively read those. I want to try to read 12 of them in 2025. I want to try to read one a month regardless of what is going on. I want to stop and take a moment and allow myself to listen to even 10 pages. This is something that is very challenging for me, especially on the weekends. You wouldn't think so on the weekends, but there's so much else going on the weekends. That is when I'm filming. That's when I'm getting a majority of the editing done. That's also when I'm doing all my house cleaning, my errands, my laundry, all of that stuff is going on. And there is always something that I could be doing. And so making myself sit down to read is almost an impossibility on the weekends. I am much more likely to allow myself to read on my lunch break for 20 or 30 minutes than I am at home on the weekends. So I want to build the habit of every single day, regardless of the day, regardless of what is going on, to sit down and read, even if it's for 10 minutes, just to make some progress on the book, to ensure that I'm able to read one book every single month. Question number 8, is there any genre that you want to explore more in 2025? And I think romance/contemporary romance is just going to be one that I naturally try to explore more of, because in theory, I should really love those books, but there are so many that just don't meet my standard. So I think that's just going to be a continuous journey that I have. In terms of any other genres, I do think that I want to explore a little bit more sci-fi, because 2 books that I absolutely adored this year were Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir and, of course, Ready Player One by Ernest Cline, both of which are sci-fi. And I've also enjoyed The Family Experiment by John Mars, which is a kind of genre blend of sci-fi with like thriller aspects to it. So I really do think that I could get more into sci-fi, but I think it has to be specific sci-fi. I don't want anything too weird, too crazy, too hard to understand. I want something that's more accessible. So if you have any recommendations for that, please leave that down below. Question number 9 is another fun one. If you could assign yourself a reading superpower for 2025, what reading superpower would you assign yourself? So I would say the superpower that I assigned to myself would be the superpower to remember every detail of every book that I read. I have terrible bookish amnesia. I am awful about retaining details of books. I typically remember like the overall plot and like a lot of the twists that happen in the book, but none of the smaller aspects to it, none of the finer details. I would love to be able to do that in 2025, because I do think that it would help me be more specific in my reviews. It would help me with my ratings of the books and all of that stuff. So that would be my superpower. Question number 10, if you could magically guarantee you'll finish a daunting book this year, which one would it be? So I don't necessarily have a super daunting book on my radar, except for some of the ones that I've already mentioned, like Empire of the Damned. I am intimidated by that book, not because of the length, but because of how slow it is, how action-packed it is. There are certain aspects of that that I'm not looking forward to. I will admit that I'm also intimidated by House of Flame and Shadow, because I've heard almost nobody like that book. So that really scares me. I don't really have any expectations going into it, but almost nobody who has loved the series has liked that book. And so that makes me really, really nervous. So that would probably be a good answer to this. Name 3 series that you want to start and finish in 2025. So the series that I definitely want to finish in 2025 are The Lunar Chronicles by Marissa Meyer. I literally only have one book left. That is Winter. I also want to finish the Defy the Night series by Bridget Kemmerer. I also only have one book left to finish in that. And I do want to finish the Crescent City series by Sarah J. Maas. From what I'm understanding, House of Flame and Shadow is the ending of this trilogy. There could be more books in the series, but it's going to be kind of more like the ACOTAR series, where any other books released follow other characters. In a similar vein, I also want to read Ashes and the Star-Cursed King by Carissa Broadbent, which would finish the first duology in the Crowns of Nyaxia series. So any of these series that I only have like one book left, I really want to finish. In terms of series that I want to start, I would say the main one that is on my radar is the Faithful and the Fallen series by John Gwynne. I've heard amazing, amazing things about Malice. Like literally everybody who reads that book absolutely adores it. So I want to read it. Another series that was put on my radar hardcore in 2024 was the Greenbone Saga by Fonda Lee. That is actually the very first book that I'm going to be reading as part of a series read along in my Patreon. So that will certainly be started in 2024. As for a third one, I don't necessarily have anything that's super on my radar, but I have heard amazing things about Divine Divine Rivals, and that is going to be the February book club pick for the Bookworm Bitches book club. And I was waffling back and forth on whether or not I wanted to start the series because on the one hand, I've heard so many things about it, but on the other, I have heard people who haven't enjoyed it and the specific reasons they haven't enjoyed it, and it makes me wonder if I'm going to enjoy it, especially since I believe it is more historical in nature. I think it's like set in World War II, so I'm really hesitant. So there are things that I know I'm going to love about it, and there are also things that I'm not sure I'm going to love about it, but I have to read it for the book club anyway. So there are definitely 3 series that I plan on starting in 2025. Question number 12, what is one specific bookish event or readathon you'd like to participate in this year? I definitely plan on participating in 2 readathons. I will participate in the Amazing Readathon, and if Becca does bring back Bookopoly at some point, I will be participating in that. But overall, I think that's the extent of what I plan to participate in. I love the idea of readathons, and I think it's a great way to build community, but at the same time, I have a lot of other big plans for my reading, and sometimes that just doesn't fit in with readathons and like the prompts and all of that stuff. And with everything else going on, especially for like these team-based competitive readathons, I just can't commit to them like I want to commit to them. So those are really the only 2 that I plan on participating in 2025. Question number 13, name 3 authors you want to try for the first time in 2025. So the first one that I want to try is an author that I had never heard of before, but the author is Jordan Harper. When I went to Houston and I stopped by Murder by the Book, one of the featured books was a book by this gentleman, Jordan Harper, and what really caught my attention is that it was Blur by S.A. Cosby. Actually, I think he might have also wrote the introduction to one of his books, and it was just such glowing praise. Like, this was S.A. Cosby lamenting that he will never be as good of a writer as this man, and I think S.A. Cosby is phenomenal. Like, he is a beautifully talented author. His writing is absolutely gorgeous. So to hear him give such high praise to this author, I was like sold. And from what I'm understanding, this author writes books very similar to S.A. Cosby in that they are more like crime dramas, that they are going to be on the more gritty and violent side, and I am absolutely here for it. Another author that I really want to try is Jennifer Mormon. She has a new release coming out at the end of January. I think it's called The Vanishing of Josephine Reynolds or something like that, and it's giving me very much Adrienne Young vibes. And so I already had a book of hers on my TBR that I didn't remember. It's called The Magic All Around. Like, it completely escaped my attention that I had a book of hers on my TBR. So I want to read one of those books. I want to give it a try and see if I want to continue with her as an author, to see if she could be like a new Adrienne Young for me, because I'm just really loving the vibes of her books. And another author I think I really want to give a try in 2025 is Paige Toon. Y'all know that I'm on a really big quest to find consistent romance or contemporary romance authors that I can always gravitate towards. And I've heard a lot of amazing things about Paige Toon. I've heard that she writes very hard-hitting emotional reads, and that is what I'm looking for. I've read the synopses of a lot of her books and they really appeal to me. So I do absolutely want to give her a try in 2025. Question number 14. If you create bookish content, name one thing you hope to accomplish with your page, channel, etc. I think one of the main things that I want to accomplish, aside from just general growth, is collaborations. I want to collaborate with more content creators throughout the year. I did 2 with Sarah this year and I had an absolute fabulous time. There's already a collaboration planned with me and Jen from The Bookish Blonde, and I think that's going to take place in March. So I would absolutely love to do more collaborations with content creators in 2025, but that's not necessarily something I have a lot of control over unless I'm the one that has the idea and I'm initiating the collaboration. Other than that, I would kind of have to like wait for somebody to approach me with a collaboration idea. I'm hoping that happens. You know, I'm hoping to be approached with some more collaborations in 2025, or to be struck with creativity and have ideas for collaborations in 2025. So that is a big thing that I would like to accomplish for sure. And the final question of this tag is, what is one wish you have for your 2025 reading year? I would say the main wish that I have is quality over quantity. I have mentioned this multiple times before with my goal of intention. I want to read intentionally, and I want to pick up books that I think that I'm going to like, that are going to stick with me, that are going to mean something to me. And I don't care if that means that I'm reading less. I just want to fulfill all the goals that I'm setting for myself. And I want to make sure that the books that I'm picking up are books that I'm excited to read, that I'm interested in reading, and books that I think I'm really going to enjoy. All right, everyone, that is it. That is the chapter 1 book tag. I know it's a lot of questions, but I wanted to try to be as thorough and comprehensive as I could so that this could be something that we look back on every single year. As this is a brand new original book tag, literally nobody else has done it. So I tag absolutely everybody out there who creates content that may want to do this tag. And I think that's it for this video, y'all. As I've mentioned before, I'm really excited for 2025 and I'm excited for y'all to come with me. If you are so inclined, please comment down below with some of your answers to any of these questions. I would love to know your answers. Or if you've made it to the end of this video and you are not feeling chatty, just go ahead and leave me like a celebratory emoji, like the party popper or fireworks or anything like that in honor of the new year of 2025. And as always, if you like this video or if you just like me, please be sure to give it a big thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't haven't already, I typically post 2 videos a week, one on Wednesdays, one on Sundays, and I would love to connect with you in any of those future videos. If you would love to connect with me outside of YouTube, you can find links to my Goodreads, Instagram, and Patreon linked down below, along with any books that I may feature in the video. Until next time, y'all. Bye.